Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special episode of our podcast being premiered on the occasion of United Nations World Sustainable Transport Day. I'm Sauraveswar Sen, founder, mentor, Catalyst Learning Services, and I'm delighted to have you with us as we explore emerging ideas, innovations, and career pathways shaping a more sustainable and equitable future. For those tuning in for the first time, at Catalyst, our work over the last 14 years has centered on empowering young people to build impactful careers in the social development sector. From climate action, public policy, to CSR, ESG, gender advocacy, international development, Catalyst has supported thousands of learners across India to find their purpose, prepare for global opportunities, and contribute meaningfully to society. We partner with institutions, governments, and organizations to connect classroom learning with real world change. Today, we are honored to be joined by someone whose work sits at the heart of sustainable mobility and urban transformation. Please welcome Dr. Varun Varghese, a leading researcher and practitioner in the field of sustainable transportation and assistant professor, Department of Humanities and Social Sciences, IIT Tirupati. Specializing in urban and transportation planning with a PhD in urban science and engineering from IIT Bombay, Dr. Varun's research spans activity travel behavior analysis, urban analytics, survey methods, and transit oriented development. Dr. Varun has published extensively in leading international journals exploring issues at the intersection of mobility, built environment, and urban policy. His work brings critical insights into how cities can be planned for greater sustainability, accessibility, and user equity. Dr. Varun, thank you so much for your time to be with us today and to take forward this discussion. I would request you, Dr. Varun, that while we look at a day devoted towards sustainable transportation, the very natural question that comes to our mind is that what exactly do we mean by sustainable transportation? Because at the end of the day, transportation is critical. Uh, we move with the help of transportation. Uh, Trade, commerce is related to transportation. We notice transportation getting impacted nowadays with disaster phenomena. So, if you would just like to share with us, uh, if possible, what exactly do we mean when we talk about sustainable transportation? And we look forward to the discussion with you. Thank you once more for your time.
Thank you very much, Sauraveswar. Thank you for the invitation and thank you also for giving such a nice introduction. So that is how I have prepared my presentation today. So the idea was to give a very gentle introduction to sustainability in transportation and challenge some of the ideas that exist in people's minds and how we are often wrong about these ideas and then how to course correct. So I'll just walk your attendees through all that, and then we can just open up the floor for discussions. And I would also request the people attending to just switch on their cameras so that we can have a more interactive discussion. So Lokesh, Rahul, whoever is switching in, I would just like to talk to you while I'm presenting, just also get your inputs on what you think about some of these ideas so that we can have an interactive session. So if it's okay with all of you, can you please switch on your cameras? If you are not at a place where you think you can come on camera right now, it's fine. But if I ask you something, please switch on your mics and respond. Is that fine? Sorry.
Yes, I think that's fine. Perfect. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Lokesh, Rahul, would be wonderful if you are able to keep your cameras on because it just
yeah,
helps in a more humane
right,
discussion. Thank you. Lokesh,
right,
really appreciate. Thank you.
right. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah.
Sir,
So
sorry, sir. Please excuse me for this time. And I'm in bus, sir. I'm
Oh,
traveling
no
towards
problem.
home.
No problem.
no,
Really
perfect.
appreciate.
No,
Sir,
perfect. You
thank
are
you, sir.
actually traveling in a sustainable means of transport, so I appreciate that. You're not taking,
Thank you, sir.
say a cab or a private vehicle. So anyway, so I'll just go to the next slide. And the first thing I wanted to ask is, what do you think is sustainability? Both Rahul and Lokesh, you can just pitch in, or if anybody else has joined in, because I cannot see all of you. So if anybody else is attending, what do you think sustainability is? You know, it doesn't have to be correct, but how would you define sustainability?
The meeting today's needs by reserving or preserving tomorrow's future.
So that's the perfect, most perfect definition, right? We need to, uh, of course, develop. We, in the context of India, we are uh, vying to become a developed country, Viksit Bharat by 2047. So we have our needs. We have to fulfill those needs, but that cannot come at the cost of the needs of the future generations. So if we have to plan for sustainable development, we need to consider how we are using up these resources. And you would see throughout this presentation how mobility and transportation is at the core of it. Just to give a very basic glimpse, and I'm sure you might be aware about this, that if we just take up all the CO2 emissions that is happening across the globe, nearly one fourth, 24%. So this is a slightly older data. We have to update this, but you can say that with confidence that around one fourth of the total CO2 emissions comes from transportation sector. And within transportation, if we break down the different kinds of transportation, right? Transportation could be from road, from could be from air, could be from water. And if you just break it down, passenger road transportation, which includes your cars, motorcycles, buses, taxis, is almost half of that 24%. And reduction of these emissions by addressing these challenges in transportation would help us achieve sustainability. So, what I'm not sure whether Lokesh spoke or Rahul spoke, where one of you define. If we have to achieve that, we need to look into what are the sustainable modes of transportation and how we can reduce this huge percentage and how we can reduce the contribution of the passenger transportation. Of course, there is freight transportation, there is aviation, shipping, which again contributes a major chunk. Specifically for India, what we are seeing lately is the rise of the aviation sector. Wherever you want to go, and if you have the means to buy a flight ticket, you would buy that, right? And that is really bad for the environment. And as a country, we are not thinking or investing in other relatively sustainable modes of transportation, which are also fast, but might not be as fast as flight, but would be much cheaper in terms of the cost to the environment. And today we will be also looking into how to basically rationalize this cost. And when we are talking about, say, the negative effect of a particular transportation mode, how do we basically quantify that negative? So we will be also looking into that. Now, if we just break this down further, this is the distribution across different travel modes. And the figure on the right, it shows how much carbon dioxide equivalents per passenger kilometer. So it's a unit where you are considering one person traveling for 1 kilometer in each of these modes. How much carbon dioxide equivalent in gram does that particular mode produce? So you can just see the drastic difference between, say, railways or how Lokesh is now, Lokesh or Rahul, who is traveling in the bus?
Sir, me, sir, Rahul.
Yeah, Rahul. So see, you are contributing almost less than half that of a domestic flight and almost half that of a car. So it gives an idea how moving to these sustainable modes of transportation would reduce the load on the environment. And the figure on the left shows, apart from carbon dioxide, the other emissions that are happening due to different kinds of transportation mode. But now the question comes, if we know that this is good for the environment, why are people not choosing this? Lokesh and Rahul, do you have any insights? Like why, say in an Indian city, where are you from, both of you? Which city in India or
I
which
I
area
am
in India?
from Hyderabad, sir, near
Okay,
Hyderabad.
okay, great. And Lokesh? So we only have Lokesh is it, now.
No,
That's fine.
Lokesh is from Jaipur, he writes in the chat box.
Oh, okay, okay, sorry. Yeah. So one of you is from Hyderabad, one of you is from Jaipur. So what is the current travel pattern in your city? Would you like to just enlighten us? Is it primarily two-wheelers? Is it a mix of two-wheelers and those shared auto rickshaws? Or is there some other modes of transportation that is dominating?
Sir, being Hyderabad is a metropolitan city, Hyderabad
Right.
primary source of transport is metro, sir, electrified metro.
Is it the primary mode? I understand that metro exists in Hyderabad. I think it's just two lines or three lines of metro,
Ah,
right? I
yeah,
don't
sir,
think.
not big. It's just 74 kilometers of metro.
Correct. No, suppose if
Ah,
there are 100 people in Hyderabad, 100 percentage of people, what would be the percentage share of metro and bus?
so bus 50-50, sir. I think 40 and 40, 20% contributes to personal vehicle.
Really?
Yes,
I think you think it's to be too high. You're too optimistic. I think it will be much lower. I don't know Hyderabad. I have to check, but I see. I'll tell you the figures of Delhi,
sir.
which is one of the widest metro networks. So there, the share of public transport is less than 50%. And I also know the numbers of Mumbai. Mumbai, surprisingly, more than 50% of people actually walk. Walking share is really high. It's close to 50%. It could be more. The last survey said it was more, but in the last few years, drastic development has happened. So it could have shifted more towards private transportation. We have to do a survey and try to really gauge the real condition. But after walking, the largest share there is the local train, which again is relatively more sustainable than, say, your private vehicles. But a city like Delhi has a huge share of private vehicles, specifically two-wheelers, and then followed by your four-wheelers and also cycle rickshaws. And there are challenges why people are not shifting to public transportation. The first one being the last mile of these public transport networks. Even though Hyderabad, for example, has constructed three lines and it is very comfortable, air conditioned, price is also maybe, I'm guessing, not very highly priced, but maybe it might be slightly on the higher side as compared to bus. But still, people are not really shifting because the distance to your nearest station and the distance you have to travel after you get down, say, nearby your office, is too much. Not just distance, it's also time. You have to, say, maybe take an auto or maybe take a Rapido ride. And then that takes more time. So your total door to door travel time becomes very large. And that is somehow a really big deterrent for people to avoid public transportation or move towards private vehicles. And then there is a concept of captive riders. What are captive riders? Captive riders are primarily people who actually cannot afford anything else rather than your public transportation. So they have been held captive. You understand this term, right? So they have been in a way kidnapped and there is no other option, which again is not good because they're not doing it by their choice. The moment they have the economic mobility, they're going to shift. So how do we ensure that your typical private vehicle owners who can buy a two-wheeler, say a scooter, or they can buy a car, how do we ensure that they don't move from their public transportation to their private vehicles? And there are some very good examples from across the world. We see how in Tokyo, we know, right, Japanese cars are the best in the world. They are an economy which are highly dependent on the development and the production of these cars. But if you go to Tokyo, most people there prefer to take either a bus or a train. Train meaning the railways, metro, local trains, everything combined. And that has happened primarily because the total cost to take the train is much lower than taking their own vehicle. And by cost, I just don't mean your out of pocket money. There is also cost in terms of time. If you can save time, if you're taking a car, you will be stuck in traffic. Right? That time is money. But if you take a metro, you reach somewhere much faster. So you're saving, say, 20 minutes, and that 20 minutes actually translates to some money. If you are taking metro, you are also saving on, in India, for example, your noise pollution, your exposure to environmental pollution. That again is a economic benefit that you are gaining. So all these costs, how to basically think about it, we will cover in the subsequent slides. Now, this I have this very famous concept being I'm trying to just show it through visualization. So there was this former mayor of Bogota, Colombia. So Bogota is a very interesting city. If you don't know, it is in Colombia. I think the spelling is wrong. It should be Colombia. So this is in so it's below US and above South America. So Colombia is country which heavily invested on their public transport systems. And in Bogota, which is the city in Colombia, it has a BRT system. Do you know what is the BRT system? Bus Rapid Transit System, where buses are given exclusive lanes. And in India, few cities tried it. I think Ahmedabad has been successful in continuing the program, but unfortunately, many cities had to withdraw. The cities that withdrew this were Indore recently withdrew the BRT network. Then Delhi had one line, but it was not really successful. And imagine you're taking up some part of the road space and saying that this is exclusively for public transportation. So only buses will run on that route. And of course, emergency vehicles, your ambulances, fire service vehicles will also be allowed. Now, it never gained popularity. It always received the opposition in India, and that was also a reason why it got closed down in, say, Indore. And I've seen very educated people, journalists, people who are with the government, criticize it without really understanding the science. Again, something common that happens in transportation science and transportation planning is that policymakers go to the public for their opinion. Now, there is this argument that when we feel sick, do we go to a public to ask them what should we do with our body? We go to an expert, right? We go to a doctor and ask the doctor to really test us, understand what are the issues, and then prescribe the medicine. Correct? Similarly, when there is an issue in the transportation system, the urban transportation system, which is the primary focus of this talk, then we should go to the transportation experts, people who are working in transportation companies or people who are researching transportation in academic institutions. They would be able to help you in a better way. And the most common idea here is that if we widen the road, the traffic will reduce. So this is again one of the most famous paradoxes in transportation, where widening the road actually increases traffic. And we will be talking about again in the subsequent slides. This basically comes from the concept of induced demand, your latent demand that suddenly rises because now they see a new lane, and we will be talking about it. But before that, I wanted to just briefly talk to you about these different modes and how much space these modes are taking. And the idea here is we have 200 people to transport. So the number of people is the same. And how much time and space would each of these modes take? And then, sorry, I just digressed a bit. So I was talking about Bogota and the mayor of Bogota, who gave this really famous saying, talking about a developed country is not where poor people have cars. It's where the rich use public transport. So we want to make our public transport so comfortable, so attractive that the people who can actually afford to take private vehicles actually ditch their private vehicles and choose uh, public transport. And this is only possible when we not just reduce the cost of the monetary cost, but also all the associated costs. We often use the term generalized cost. And today we will be looking into some of these concepts. So just let me just quickly play this video. You would see, you would see there are five modes, right? So there is the car mode, then we have buses, trams, bicycles, and pedestrians. And it just shows how much time each of these mode takes to transport the same amount of people. You could see for 200 people in car, it would be almost a 1 kilometer long queue. So buses and trams are the fastest, followed by pedestrians, then bicycles, and then finally car, which is much, 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 much larger. Because if you see Indian roads, on average, yeah, if you see Indian roads, on average, you would see a car being driven by just one person. Okay? Maximum of two. So the average would be somewhere around 1.2, 1.3, very low occupancy. Now imagine 200 people would take almost 150, 160 cars. Space is limited, right? We on planet Earth, the space is limited. We cannot really keep on adding roads. Nothing is going to change. A car on average takes way too much space as compared to a bus. A bus, 200 people would comfortably fit in 2 to 3 buses if the buses are large. Similarly, in metro, also one metro itself can transport 200 people, right? And then similarly, bike and walking takes much less space. So you can directly understand the direct impact on congestion, which is the most talked about externality. You understand the concept of externality, right? The impact, the it could be both positive or negative impact of a particular thing, in this case transportation. So when we're talking about the externality of transportation, congestion is one of the most talked about externality. Now in Indian cities, there is this tendency to have quick fix solutions. So we often see policymakers, politicians come up with this idea of let us build a flyover. And I have seen very intelligent people, people working in the IT industry, finance industry, who are really smart. They also think that this is actually going to save our city. So let us just think about the flyover in your city. So there was a congested road. Okay, somebody built a flyover to move over or go over or fly over that particular congested road. Okay, now traffic has started to go there. Now, what happens is that it is just shifting the direction or the position of the congestion. It is just taking the congestion from point A and just changing it to point B. You know, your highways, your large highways, very spacious, very nice, but your cities have bottlenecks. The width to enter the city is always going to be narrow. Similarly, in congestion, you might have widened the road somewhere, but somewhere else you are putting the same traffic into the same narrow street. So your net congestion is not going to reduce. And then there is the concept of induced demand. What is this? The moment you increase road width. So I can argue that increase in road width is actually decreasing my cost of traveling. In a way, it is cost, right? I have freed up space. So now I, who was like Rahul, I was using, say, a bus. Suddenly I know that I have a two-wheeler and now this width has been increased. So I know that it will take less time. So I was using my bus for all this while. Now I start using my two-wheeler. I start using this on the new width, increased width road. Now, similarly, like Rahul, so many other people will do the same. So there existed this latent demand which would suddenly rise up because the cost of now taking that road reduced. So over a short period of time, within a couple of years, 3 years, within a very short period of time, the road will again be congested. So that is what the figure on the left shows, right? And on the right, you're seeing that it is sort of a vicious cycle where we think just adding more infrastructure would reduce the congestion. And soon we'll also talk about the other externalities: environmental pollution, noise pollution. Uh, Another big issue with private transportation, what we are seeing in India specifically, is the rise in lifestyle diseases. We, as a country, are eating. This is again ancestral. We have had the history of food shortage, so we had uh, adapted to a carb heavy diet. But that doesn't suit our current lifestyle, which is largely sedentary. So, can we design our cities in a way where people are encouraged to walk, encouraged to take more uh, physically, where you exert physically, such modes where you exert physically, like bicycle and walking. But our cities, if you go out, are unsafe. This is another externality of transportation. I have to talk. Sorry. Yeah. So these externalities of transportation. Sorry, I was talking about road safety. This is again a very big externality. You just go out of your road. Is it safe to walk? I, as a transportation researcher, can give this value judgment. Why are people not walking? But this fact is, people largely are rational. They know the risks and the costs associated with walking on Indian street. So recently, there was this Instagram reel that became very viral. It is about Indians in Bangkok. So there's a group of Indians walking on a Bangkok street where there is actually very good footpaths being constructed. But us Indians are so used to walking on the street. We, with this other mixed modes of transportation, they are really not aware about this idea that there exists a footpath and they can comfortably walk on it. So they are, because of their, you know, training, or how would I say, their perception and norms of being walking in India for so long, they were also walking in Bangkok on the street. And somebody stopped them and said, okay, there's a footpath there. So this again is something that needs long-term education and slow change, where there is also the behavioral concept, behavioral angle, where people need to be trained again to take up this infrastructure. But the point I was trying to make is that currently we can say that, okay, let us encourage sustainable modes of transportation, walking, bicycling. But the fact of the matter is, these modes in the current Indian landscape does not exist in most Indian cities. Wherever it is existing, it is largely fragmented, unsafe. So we need a lot of work to be done in this area. And again, connected to induced demand. So the biggest supporter of, say, private vehicles is Elon Musk. He might have his own reasons. I don't know. He has a car company. He has profits to make. And so there might be reasons why he is saying that, but he is ignoring the decades of science behind this. He so this was one of his tweets where he is criticizing induced demand and saying that it doesn't work like this. But it is very well established. If you ask to a person working in the field of transportation, it is very well established that if you make something, yeah, Sarveshwar, please ask, please ask.
I'm sorry, I've been absolutely soaking into your conversation, and being
Yeah,
in Kolkata, I would
right,
just like to reflect upon a couple of
yeah,
things which I just learned in the very first minutes of your presentation. So, for
right,
example, the flyovers which have been constructed inside
right,
Kolkata, we
right.
see now congestion on top of the flyovers, right?
Of
On
course, this is what is
right,
going to happen. Yeah,
right. Now on top of it, because Kolkata has been like an old city which is now expanding or trying to expand. And
right,
Kolkata traditionally has grown up to be a city which is actually pretty well networked, I would say, with
right,
roads and lanes and bylanes. Now,
correct,
what happens is, let's say, when you are below a flyover, and if there is a traffic in front of you that you can anticipate nowadays, even with Google Map,
right,
in Kolkata, a lot of parts of the city actually will give you a provision where you can
right,
actually take a left or a right turn, and you might get
right,
into a bylane for like a shorter, let's say not a shorter, but a, let's say,
right.
less traffic but less traveled, mode. It is almost like the pit stop of a Formula One race, right, where they get into the pit lane, yet
Right, right,
they really do not lose out on time so much, right? But
right.
on top of the flyover, Dr. Varun, we can't do that because you're stuck right in the middle.
Correct.
That's
Correct,
one.
correct, correct.
The second
Yeah,
thing
yeah,
which I can absolutely understand, I would like to quickly share.
yeah. Right.
Recently, many of us are aware that Kolkata got India's first underground metro, the one
Right.
which connects from Howrah station to the other part of the city.
Right.
The moment that happened, what it kind of trickled was passengers going out of Howrah station, wanting to get into the city, who would earlier commute in a bus, now takes the metro station which is embedded within the station compound, and they
Right.
cross the river in no time
Right.
comfortably in an air conditioned
Correct.
environment. However crowded the trains would be, but people with lesser luggage can more or less manage their commute into the city.
Correct.
They reach Mahakaran station, which is the first station on the other side of the river, and get
Right.
out of the Mahakaran station to then look for a private vehicle or a bus or a public transportation if required, if they don't want to
Right.
continue further. What it has
Right.
happened, what it has actually made, Dr. Varun, is that a lot of bus routes which originated from the Howrah station, they have been taken off because the bus drivers and the bus owners quite naturally used to enjoy the guarantee of a full
Mm.
bus right from the Howrah station getting into the
Right.
city to begin with, right?
Right.
Else they have to
Right.
stop
Right.
everywhere
Right.
and look for passengers.
Right. This is an
Now,
excellent point. Yeah.
and now what it has actually happened, it has
Mm.
increased the traffic into the city much more.
Right.
Earlier,
Right.
Howrah station also used to have a tram line. The tram
Right.
line has been removed way earlier. But
Right.
now, in spite of lesser buses on the road, the
Hmm.
traffic is much more. And on top of it, as I
Right.
mentioned to you right at the start of the session, that the trams are
Right.
being removed
Hmm.
on
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
pretext that roads have to be widened.
Yeah.
Otherwise, trams are slowing it down. I mean,
Right.
so I just thought I'll
No, no,
share
no.
this. You can
No,
share.
no. The one very good point that you touched upon is the competition between public transportation modes. So I think this is where the role of the planning agencies come in, where they ensure that these different public transportation systems, say a bus system and a metro, or a metro and a tram, bus and a tram, they complement each other rather than they fight for the limited revenue pool. So if that is made possible, we can ensure that everybody is happy. And what you just said is really a sad story, and it has happened also because of poor planning. And I can say that tram or any public transportation network, in the long run, will reduce the cost to the society. So it's not just in time, but we are also talking about environmental pollution. We are also talking about lower congestion levels, noise pollution, all these different health benefits, and all these different first order and higher order impact is also associated with the sustainable transportation mode. So yeah, I totally agree with what you said, Saurabh. Yeah. So yeah, just using that, I will just move forward. So the idea of induced demand is that if you make something cheaper, right, through the addition of new lanes, a new flyover, you will have more people use it because there is latent demand for it. And eventually, this would again end up being a road which is congested. And this is again the same figure which shows over the years how this latent demand kicks in and how we see the traffic increase. That shaded area in orange resembles your induced demand, which would not have existed if they didn't add an additional road network. Again, we have to be very clear. I'm not talking about road or the construction of road. Roads are very essential for access. I'm talking about increasing this capacity beyond what is needed and then not focusing on public transportation system, land use, all these factors which contribute to the management of demand itself. See, another very important thing that we want to highlight here is travel for most of the time is a derived demand. What do I mean by that? That we travel to do something else, right? I travel to go to my workplace. Uh, Rahul is now traveling in a bus to go somewhere, right? To maybe meet his family, to go to his work, do shopping. So there is some activity that we are doing at the end of the travel. Unless you just enjoy traveling for the sake of travel, there might be a few people who do that, but that's very less. So now we also have to think about activities. So if we don't talk about the purpose of travel, we are totally missing out on how to design sustainable systems. So there comes the role of land use planning. So some of you might have heard this concept of 15-minute city. What does it mean? It means that whatever you need in a city, be it work, be it shopping related activities, be it your leisure related activities, everything should be within 15 minutes of walking or public transportation. Are our cities designed like that? If we can also do that while integrating land use planning with the development of sustainable modes of transportation, we will ensure from both sides that more people are encouraged to take these sustainable modes of transportation and not take our polluting, more congesting modes of transportation. Right. So this is where the idea of inverting the pyramid comes. So if you see current nature of mode use in most Indian cities is the figure, this figure, right? This pyramid on the left, where most people are using personal transportation. It includes both two-wheelers and four-wheelers. Majorly, they are using two-wheelers. And then we have your taxi, car sharing, then maybe public transport, and the least would be bicycle and walking. How do we change that? How do we ensure that if a person is making, say, 10 trips in a day, it could be to a shop, it could be to drop their kids at school. See, when I was a kid, I used to ride my own bicycle. These days, I live in Tirupati city. I rarely see a kid riding their own bicycle to school. Again, we cannot blame the families and the kids because our cities are not designed in a way where where our kids feel safe. Yes, it has almost vanished. How do we ensure that this pyramid is inverted? Right? We want to minimize personal transportation, uh, like private vehicles, and maximize pedestrians and cyclists and public transport use. Right? And this would come first by the building of infrastructure. So now, at least, I have been working with the Andhra Pradesh Central Region's vision plan, where we are now trying to suggest that cities in the Andhra Pradesh Central Region should have complete networks of pedestrian friendly and bicycle friendly streets where the pedestrian can walk comfortably. So the infrastructure has to be there. The infrastructure has to be shaded. See, in India, we also have a very extreme climatic conditions, right? We get extreme summers, and in the north we get extreme winters. So I also hear this argument very often that in India, we should not focus on bicycling or walking because we have extreme heat or extreme cold, say, in the northern regions. But I fundamentally disagree with this because just look at what Scandinavian countries are doing. Scandinavian countries like Norway, Finland, they have such harsh winters, but still people there use uh, bicycle. Bicycling is so common in Amsterdam and in other cities of North, like European cities. Right? Then why is this argument not coming there? Because they invested in infrastructure. They made sure that the infrastructure is a nicely developed, well maintained, and then it is comfortable to use. So that is where the shading and the safety aspect comes in. And then the integration of your infrastructure with land use. As I said, people travel to do something else. So we have to ensure that this something else is accessible. So there has to be seamless integration. So there is where the concept of transit-oriented development comes in. What is transit-oriented development? So we have our transit systems, our public bus systems, our metro systems. Can we have our land use plans developed in a way that the adjoining areas of this transit line is mostly commercial or office spaces so that people just get down from the station and just can walk to their workplace. And then that walking infrastructure can again be shaded, comfortable, clean to walk in. Waste is another huge challenge in India, and we don't have enough time to talk about that, but everything is connected. Right? And the third thing is travel demand management. This is where the policies come in. This is where, so travel demand management can be broadly divided into three categories. One is cost based, where, so you might know about this concept of carrots and sticks. Right? So you have some cost to use your private transportation. So this is where the concept of congestion pricing come in. Bangalore is now toying with this idea whether congestion pricing should be introduced in their city or not. Right? This is where the fee for parking comes in. Ahmedabad has very nicely managed their parking by restricting parking by really levying high charges for parking in some areas so that people are demotivated to use private vehicles and are motivated to use, say, the BRT in Ahmedabad. Then there is supply-based travel management strategies, which include constraining road space so that the demand for using that road space reduces. This is the paradox. Right? You might think why cutting down on road space would reduce the demand, which is very obvious. If I say that in that particular area, you cannot park your vehicle, or that lane in the morning would only be pedestrian friendly. There will not be any private vehicles allowed in the central part of, say, Calcutta, say, Park Street, only walking. Then you will be thinking, okay, let us not take my car out today. I'll just take the metro. Right? But again, it has to come with infrastructure, land use, it has to come together. And the third travel demand management strategy is your supportive strategy. For example, giving good real-time information. Sauraveswar was talking about Google Apps. So there can be some advanced real-time information provided to people. Now, one of the biggest challenges in India for public transportation is reliability. I know the bus should come at 9:15 a.m., but it never comes at 9:15. Again, if it is fixed that it will come 3 minutes late, I can plan. Okay, it will come at 9:18. But that 3 minutes is also not reliable. It could be 3 minutes, it could also be 30 minutes in India. So, how do we ensure that we have this reliability? So, that can come from all these new age solutions, right? GPS, tracking of these buses, and providing that information to your end user. And when these three come together, travel demand management strategies, be it cost based, supply based, supportive strategies, with infrastructure planning and the integration of physical infrastructure with land use, then we can ensure that we have planning for transportation that is towards sustainable development, right? But we also have to ensure that the benefits of sustainable transportation is also equitable. See, if we plan something, for example, there is this big debate that metro in India is mostly used by the slightly middle class, upper middle class, or rich people. It might be just 40 rupees, but that 40 rupees is too expensive for your typical captive rider of the bus, who might be paying, say, 10 to 15 rupees for the same ride. And then that difference is too much for them. So how do we ensure that these new modes of transportation is equitable and the benefits? See, we are talking about externality, right? So if I cut down private vehicle, build in more public transportation, so there is decrease in CO2 emissions, decrease in accidents, decrease in other externalities, decrease in lifestyle diseases. How do we ensure that this benefit is for everyone? Okay, so equity is something that we have to talk about and consider. So there is where the concept of transport justice comes in. And then we have to very carefully consider sustainability science as a concept, where we have to acknowledge that this is not something that we do today and we don't have to revisit this again. So one plan is being made for the next 27. So we are talking about Viksit Bharat 2047, right? So we want to make a plan for 2047, but we have to give in the scope for learning in the next 20 years. Yes, we have a vision for 2047, but in these 20 years, we will have a lot of learnings. We will succeed in some of the ideas, fail in some of the ideas. We need to learn from these and then go back to the drawing board, challenge our objectives, challenge our norms, and be able to quickly change this. So, here we have to acknowledge that transportation does not exist in silence. It is a system which is interacting. So human beings are interacting with the physical infrastructure of transportation, and that is again interacting with the ecological system, the environment. Right? Everything is moving continuously. There are feedback loops. Everything is interacting with. It's a very complex science. We have to acknowledge that and study it like that, and then we have to really, really ensure that this is something that cannot be done by just transportation engineers or transportation planners. We have to collaborate with, say, public health experts. We have to collaborate with the actual stakeholders, the people. So there is this idea of co-creation of knowledge. So it is not we propose something as a transportation planner or a policy expert, and then it should not be top down. It should be people coming in together, experts from different fields, right? And then different stakeholders. It could be the government organization, the people who are getting affected. Everybody sit together, have this stakeholder consultation, and try to create knowledge that can help us attain, our vision, our goal of sustainably developing our country. Right? Then, so this example I wanted to give about how cost of transportation is not just what you pay. So if you just, I just looked into the price of an Activa. It is somewhere around, say, 1 lakh. If we consider all the different features, it will go somewhere around 1 lakh to 1,20,000, right? And it might vary based on the model type, the brand type, and this is what I'm paying. Now, this payment again has two types. One is the fixed cost and the variable cost. Fixed cost is your one-time payment for the asset, and the variable cost is your cost for the fuel, cost for maintenance. That will vary based on how you use. And then there is also The external cost to you as the consumer, you are riding the bike in a congested road. You are taking in all the polluted air. You are listening to all this noise pollution. Everybody is really pressing on their horns. Right? So all of that additional is also taking a toll on you. So there is this cost. You might not quantify it, but it will eventually affect you, right? Your reduced physical activity would affect you in the way of high medical cost in the future. So everything is a cost, right? This is the cost to you, but there is also a cost to the society, the bystander. Because today Rahul used bus, he did not use a car, so he reduced some environmental pollution to another person in that region, correct? So that bystander's cost is often neglected when we are talking about cost. See now, when I take the institute bus daily to go back to my home, and every day after getting down from my bus, I have to pass by this railgate crossing, and often it is crowded. Often means almost 95% of the time it is fully packed, and all these horns, all these noise, pollution, everything is on my face. I am not even using that car. I'm not even using. I was just walking from some other area to other area, but everything is coming to me, and I am getting exposed to that entire, you know, negative effect for at least 2 to 3 minutes. This is the cost to me, and again, my time is getting delayed. And this cost to me as a society is never considered in setting up the price of the Activa. So Activa, Honda's motivation is what to sell, but should we only consider about Honda, or should we also consider about, say, society at large, and also think about these other costs, right? So I just wanted to show this figure. So this is a simple demand supply curve, and the point where it meets is the equilibrium point, right? So that is where you decide the cost of a particular product, and then you also know, okay, if this is the price, how much would be the total sales of that particular product, right? The same example of two-wheelers. And if the cost to the bystander is also considered, this blue line will shift upwards. Right? It won't be the same slope. Right? You have to pay more. Right? If you have to pay more, your quantity of consumption would be less. So the actual equilibrium lies here. This is the efficient equilibrium. So actually, what is happening in the market is your overuse. So if we really consider the cost to the society at large, see, Honda is not going to consider. This is an argument. I'm making a theoretical argument of why uh, the planners or the policymakers should consider this. Honda will try to maximize its profit, which is understandable. But if we consider these external costs, it's clear that there is an overuse of this private vehicle happening in the market, right? And this marginal cost is the cost of one unit. So the cost of this one unit is much larger if we take the external cost. The social cost is much larger. So this is giving rise to something called dead weight loss. Okay, this happens when the market produces too much of a good, and all these resources are being affected. So pollution, waste, noise pollution, accidents, everything is an additional dead weight to our society, which is totally ignored in the planning process. Right? So this is just a summary of that. Traditionally, any market will maximize consumer surplus and producer surplus. What is that? Consumer surplus is primarily how much a consumer is benefiting. So suppose if the price of a good is 50 rupees, right? But they were willing to pay 70 because they like that product so much. So 20 is your consumer surplus, 70 minus 50. Then there is also producer surplus. How much profit the makers of that good is making, right? So market tries to maximize this. Whereas social surplus is where we also bring in the concept of the bystander. I gave my example, right? So my external cost has also has been added in social service, and we should try to maximize this. And then there are certain tools. So I was talking about these private demand management strategies, but there are policies, regulatory policies, fiscal policies through congestion charge, fuel tax, emission tax, vehicle tax, parking charges, right? Giving subsidy. So now we are seeing that in many states, it could be a political decision, but giving free public transportation to women has actually shown that they now have more agency. They can access these different activities, and they also are saving this additional cost to do something else. Right? Who would quantify those benefits? So we have to very carefully consider about the cost which we just saw and the benefits of these policies. So giving modal subsidy, making our public transportation free, in the long run is actually beneficial to the society at large, because they have not just quantified your consumer surplus and producer surplus, but they have also quantified consumer, producer, and the bystander surplus, and then trying to maximize the total social surplus of any region. And then you have your regulatory policies. I have very strict standards for emissions. I want you to check your vehicle every year, put a tag on the top of the vehicle. If not done, your vehicle will not be allowed on the road in India. And then we have our planning and investment. So I was talking about infrastructure, I was talking about land use, and then again, there are some other strategies. Telecommuting, do you know what is telecommuting? Telecommuting is work from home. So if you work from home, it's possible that your work travel is cut down. But there again, there are studies which suggest that even though your work travel is less, you end up doing other travel. So we have to look at into the net benefit of this. Then another strategy that is suggested is your staggered work hours. So if a city has the intent, they can implement this where they say, okay, if you live in one part of the Hyderabad, all the offices should start at 9 a.m., whereas another part should start, say, 10 a.m. or 10:30. Some staggering if it is done. And the entire society comes together to support that, maybe we can reduce the congestion on the streets. Right? So these are some other strategies and policies and measures that could be done to reduce the overall social cost. Right? And then the key idea, actually, this slide should have been earlier, where transportation often in major institutes in India and across the world is looked as an engineering discipline, but I want to argue that it is not just engineering. Transportation is truly interdisciplinary, and there are social aspects to a transportation problem. When you are building a flyover, who are these stakeholders who will be impacted? Are there people getting displaced? Who will be using these flyovers? Are your daily wage workers even using the flyovers? So the public money, flyover is being constructed by our money only, right? Our tax money. Is that tax money used to make something whose benefit is being reaped by everybody in the society? If we are not considering the social angle, how would we solve a societal problem with only engineering solutions? Then there is the entire angle of psychology, behavioral science. So everything should come together, right? Economics, sustainability science, public policy, and then transportation has to be thought with that lens that it's a complex science where different disciplines come together. They have to collaborate, also collaborate with the real stakeholders, and then co-create knowledge. And then now a few slides, and I would stop my talk where I have just listed down what skills would be required in the current job market if you want to work in the field of transportation. So the first thing is uh, some skill in modeling, statistics. I think this is essential in today's day where you are trained in econometrics. So our university is very rigorous when it comes to data centric public policy. So we have a Master of Public Policy program where, because we are in an IIT, we ensure that our students go through that rigorous training. So here I have mentioned data analytics, transport planning, and modeling, where you're working with network analysis, travel demand modeling models, and then statistical modeling, your different kinds of econometric models, and then the training of tools. So working with spatial data, GIS, different tools of Python and R, very essential in today's time. And then you are also supposed to know the basic theory about these things. So what are these transportation systems? What does non-motorized transport entail? Transit-oriented development? What are the theories guiding it, principles guiding it? Then another field that is getting very popular is the connection of transportation with emissions, the modeling of life cycle. So there is this concept of from cradle to grave. So now the idea where EV electric vehicles are getting very popular, but there is also a debate where whether the entire life cycle of a EV will produce less emission or not. Of course, the tailpipe emissions, what is coming from your tailpipe, is going down, but the batteries has to be constructed now. Uh, these batteries itself, if not solar powered, is getting charged by coal powered electricity, right? Coal power, again, we have to go back to that entire life cycle of coal power. So if you're talking about from the beginning of any material in that battery electric vehicle, battery powered electric vehicle, then what are the total emissions involved? So that entails, that kind of studies are getting very popular, and getting trained in that will really increase your prospects in terms of finding a job in transportation or transportation related companies. And then the knowledge about policy frameworks, what are the schemes, missions, the regulatory frameworks, the different kind of funding mechanisms that exist in country, and the international best practices, and a knowledge about the latest state of the art technology. So everything now is AI in transportation also, because of all this big data. I constantly work with smart card data. So the work, so when you take a metro, you have your smart card, right? You tap in and tap out. So we use that data to make some planning decisions. So knowing about these different passive data, your CCTV data, how to work with such large data sets, how to make very dedicated planning or policy solutions using such passive data sets. So to know what technologies exist, understand this entire ecosystem is very crucial and would definitely help you in the job market. And then some basics about what is research, what is academic contribution, how do you communicate your research, how do you do public consultation, all these different components, how do you do a survey. These things are essential, and these components or these different, we could call it say modules, would help you increase your say prospects in the job market. And then I just listed down a few technical tools. So I think nowadays R and Python is a must. Without that, and I would also say that I understand in public policy, there is a diverse set of students coming. Not everybody is from the engineering field, but that is also what is the need of the hour. We need to sit with people from different kinds of streams to come together and try to solve this really complex problem of transportation. And but there has to be some groundwork that has to be done. Everybody should be trained in basics of programming, R or Python, and then today with this LLM model, ChatGPT and all, some kind of vibe coding has become easier. So you can invest some time to learn the basics, but also quickly grow because of these LLMs. And then basic knowledge of GIS, mapping, spatial analytics, spatial econometrics is essential. Network analysis is essential in the field of transportation. So in my course in IIT Tirupati, I have now totally shifted to Python for GIS. But any kind of software is okay. See, tool is just a way to do the analysis. So if you get used to these tools, it's very useful. Then there are these simulation tools. So, what would the congestion level look like in 2047? How do we simulate the future? So, there are these simulation tools. So, getting your hands on training in these tools are essential. Right? It will increase your marketability, jobability, right? And then survey tools. How do you do this survey? How do you design this survey? The survey is also science, right? We have to consider survey as a means to collect new information. And then how do we use that information to make evidence-based policies? And then there are these tools for doing life cycle assessment, access history. So this is not a comprehensive list, but some of the common softwares that are being trained in different transportation planning, transportation engineering programs across India and in IIT Tirupati as well. So these are some of the companies. So, for example, you can be placed in consultancy companies with the government. You can be hired to work with, say, some NGOs which are working with government to provide these evidence-based public policies. So, really, it's a really fastly growing field, and what is happening is that more and more companies in India, I don't know whether the big four, Deloitte, uh, what all are the big EY, they were doing transportation, say 30, 40 years back in US. I'm not sure, but in India now, all of these companies are doing. So if you are trained in transportation planning and policy, you might get employed in these companies as well. And then there are some other technical companies who are working in the traffic uh, engineering aspect and all the other technical aspects of transportation. And then I just wanted to end by introducing my work and my research group. So I have named my research group as Urban Dynamics and Mobility Lab, where we do research. So how would I describe my research and my group research is that we try to work at the integration of human behavior, physical infrastructure, and digital infrastructure. All of these three are interacting with each other. And what happens when, from outside you bring in a new policy? How do these things interact, and what does it mean for short term and long term planning? So this is how I would describe my work. So I primarily work in the field of urban and transportation planning, and currently I have multiple PhD students and master of public policy students. And if you are also interested to join us, please do apply. And this is just a summary of what all things we do. And again, I'll share my slides with Sauraveswar. Maybe Sauraveswar can just share it with all the attendees. So I work at this intersection of urban and transportation planning, where a lot of my work is trying to basically design these surveys, these tools to measure accurately, and then work on these different methods, combining theory-based approaches with data-driven approaches, and trying to basically contribute to evidence-based sustainable development. And it is through the study of human behavior and user outcomes. And yes, so we have a Master of Public Policy program, and we would be starting the admission cycles around March and April next year. You can just quickly scan this code if you're interested, and just go through our website, our curriculum, our faculty strength. So we have a very diverse set of faculty members coming from economics, urban planning, management, operations. So we are really trying to give our students very rigorous training. And because we are situated in IIT, students can also leverage other technical departments. So we encourage our students to take courses from computer science and engineering, civil engineering, so that they have this really well-rounded development, and they are trained in the field of public policy. And again, within public policy, you can select any kind of any vertical. So I work in urban and transportation planning. You are free to choose, say, financial economics. You are free to choose, say, development economics or water or waste, whatever is your interest. And we also have a PhD program. If you're interested, you are free to apply. And I primarily work in urban and transportation planning, but there is again Dr. Arvind who works in municipal finance, urban planning and policy. So, and then again, climate change economics, Professor Chandra works on that. So there are multiple faculty members. Please go through our website, look at the strengths we have. So if you are interested, please consider us and please apply in IIT Tirupati. And with that, I'll close. Please feel free to ask me anything, write to me. I'll share my contact details. I've shared it here, but I again ask Sauraveswar also to share it with all of you. So please feel free to ask me anything if you want to, and also you can write to me. Sauraveswar, with that, I'll just close, and if they have any questions, I can take it.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Varun. I think
Yeah.
what you have done today is definitely open our senses, because as you rightly mentioned that the transportation sector, contrary to the belief that it is run by a lot of science, technology, engineering,
Yeah.
needs to be anchored, as you rightly mentioned, with requirement of the society. And
Correct.
one thing that really struck a chord, again, I can relate very well being in Kolkata, is that a 40 rupees metro ticket is still not affordable for a wide range of people in our society. And now, let's say instead of the 40, the same route that they could have covered in 10 to 12 rupees in a bus, they are actually finding it very difficult to commute. And that is the reason why quite often we see, like, clogged bus stops, uh,
Correct.
spilling over. The other point problem is that, as you also mentioned, the pedestrian issues. We find people literally lining up and dotting the entire length of important junction to get a vehicle. So on that note, I would like to request participants, any questions on your mind, please feel free to ask. Rahul, Lokesh, Rudra, if you have any questions, please go ahead. Ask Dr. Varun. Thank you. Rahul, yes.
Not questions. I recently came across this US student, Indian student who is living in US. He said about that something high occupancy lane in USA, sir, where only 3 or 4 people in a car is allowed to drive in that lane, high occupancy lane,
Right. Hmm.
which allows only few cars and only cars, private cars are allowed in that lane with
Right.
4 or 5 people.
Right. Yeah, this sounds like an excellent idea where you have exclusively mentioned that this lane can only be used if you have three or more than three people sitting in the car. And
Correct.
because with AI, you can also now detect and say send a receipt or a fine if you don't follow
Yes,
that.
a ticket. It's a $500 ticket if
Right,
a
right.
single person enters that lane.
Correct, 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 correct. So see, again, in India also, the challenge would be here might be political. Again, this we have to come up with strategies. This is a combination of carrot and sticks. So this is a stick measure, right, where you are leaving a very high fine. So there was
Yes.
this stand-up comic who once said that government wants to take tax and fines, but it is the police which comes between and saves us by a small fee. So through their corruption, they have just reduced the fine, and they're only so the fine is 10,000. They're only taking say few hundreds or 1,000 rupees and letting you go. So AI technology can be used to reduce human intervention, and I can say with confidence that some cities have already tried that. I think the major cities like Bangalore and Delhi are quickly adopting to this, where at least breaking of traffic laws, uh, running through a signal, you will get a fine at home. And the same idea could be done slowly. We also have to ensure that the infrastructure is first built and then slowly increase, say, or like just expand these other ideas. I would love to see this. Maybe it can be compulsorily expanded at least in some of our some of our highways to ensure that people don't just travel alone. I think it's a very good idea, and thank you for sharing. I have heard about this, but yeah, because of all these challenges in India, I think it will take some time. Yeah, Rudra, please. Thank you.
Sir, how may I speak in English, Hindi? Sorry.
हाँ हाँ
Uh,
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल yeah please.
सर, मेरे को ये समझना था कि जैसे अगर हम व्हीकल्स का
रुद्र आपकी आवाज आवाज ब्रेक
काउंट
हो रही है.
इनडायरेक्ट का व्हीकल का काउंट.
रुद्रा योर वॉइस इज ब्रेकिंग. आपकी आवाज थोड़ी ब्रेक हो रही है. कैन यू रिपीट?
सर, इनडायरेक्टली हम लोग का. हेलो.
हाँ हाँ बोलिए बोलिए.
हाँ, तो अगर ऐसा नहीं लगता कि जो इंडस्ट्रीज इस्टेब्लिश हैं इस फील्ड में, व्हीकल सेक्टर में, उनके पर क्या
हम्म.
इफेक्ट पड़ेगा, और फिर जो हम लोग का एम्प्लॉयमेंट जो हम जनरेट करते हैं उन इंडस्ट्रीज से, वो उस पर इफेक्ट हो.
I think this is a very good question, and see, never in my slide I said that car sales should go down. I totally understand. These are very important industry for our country, which gives a lot of jobs to a lot of people. What I said is our dependence on private vehicle can go down, and that might mean lower sale of cars. But see, my point of argument was the social cost. So even if somebody buys a car, they don't have to use it for every small trip. Now, I live in a very nice campus. Actually, I don't live in the campus, but I work in a very nice campus where some of the faculty members also live in the campus. So the faculty housing is just hardly 1 kilometer. And I must say that IIT Tirupati's campus is excellent. It has the best walking infrastructure, bicycling infrastructure, but I rarely see any staff member using bicycle or walk. They will take a two-wheeler to come or travel this 1 kilometer distance. So this can be avoided, right? They can keep their two-wheeler to go to the market, but at least this small trip, this daily trip to their department can be reduced. This is just an example कि कार सेल्स कम होने की जरूरत नहीं है, पर ऐसा हो सकता है कि हम हर छोटे से छोटे ट्रिप के लिए हमें यहाँ से सामने वाले मार्केट में भी जाना है जो 600-700 मीटर है, बट हमारा जो चलने का जो रोड दिया गया है वो इतना खराब है, इतना अनसेफ है, उसका जो दूसरा कॉस्ट इतना ज्यादा है कि लोग चल ही नहीं रहे। हम वहां भी अपना कार लेके जा रहे हैं या फिर टू व्हीलर लेके जा रहे हैं। तो वो कम करने की जरूरत है। और देखिए, इसका आंसर कोई इतना सिंपल नहीं है, कोई ब्लैक एंड व्हाइट भी नहीं है, ये बहुत ही कॉम्प्लेक्स चीज है। बट जो आपने पॉइंट टच किया है, मैं आई टोटली एग्री, दिस इज अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट इंडस्ट्री। बट मेरा मैं मतलब ये आर्ग्यूमेंट रख रहा हूँ कि वी शुड नॉट ओनली टॉक अबाउट वन साइलोड सेक्टर। अगर हम पूरे कंट्री की बात करें, पूरी सोसाइटी एट लार्ज की बात करें, तो हमें ये सारे जो एनवायरमेंटल कॉस्ट है, जो अनसीन कॉस्ट है, उसको भी लेके आना होगा हमारे कंसिडरेशन। तो मैं वो सामने रख रहा हूँ। बट आई टोटली एक्नॉलेज दैट इट्स वेरी कॉम्प्लिकेटेड। ये मतलब ऐसा इजी नहीं है कि ये खराब है, ये गलत है, ये विलन है, ये अच्छा है, ऐसा नहीं बोल सकते हम लोग। बट the point that I'm trying to make that we often miss out on these additional costs, which should be at the center. Rudra, I hope I have somehow answered, but the thing is, this is a very complicated thing, and I agree with you, but this is what my take is.
यस, मतलब आपके कहने का मतलब कि इक्विलिब्रियम बना के रखना होगा, थोड़ा सा इधर से आगे बढ़ेंगे, थोड़ा सा उधर से पीछे हटेंगे।
हाँ हाँ हाँ, कुछ कुछ बैलेंस जरूरी है। अभी तो पूरा ही टिल्टेड है ना प्राइवेट व्हीकल की तरफ।
यस सर।
कोई कंसिडरेशन ही नहीं है हमारे देश में एट लार्ज। सी, प्लानर्स कोशिश कर रहे हैं, बट आप पब्लिक से भी पूछ लीजिए। जो मैंने थाईलैंड का एग्जांपल दिया, दे हैव नो आइडिया कि ये भी पॉसिबल है और इससे कितना कंफर्ट आएगा फ्यूचर में। दे डोंट नो बिकॉज दे हैव नेवर एक्सपीरियंस। It was long back where somebody had surveyed a slum in India, and it was a survey related to happiness, and everybody said they were so happy. But the argument that the scholar made is that they had never experienced a good quality of life, so they didn't have any benchmark to compare it to. तो वो हमें पता ही नहीं कि इससे बेनिफिट क्या है, तो पब्लिक परसेप्शन कैसे बदलेगा? वो ऐसे बदलेगा जब कुछ सिटीज में धीरे धीरे बदल रहा है। मुझे अभी ऐसा लग रहा है कि द मोर वी आर ट्रैवलिंग, इंडियंस बाहर जा रहे हैं ना, हम देख रहे हैं कि इवन स्मॉलर कंट्रीज जिनकी जीडीपी हमसे बहुत कम है, कजाकिस्तान जा रहे हैं, हम साउथ ईस्ट एशियन कंट्री में जा रहे हैं, वहाँ इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर कितना अच्छा है हमारी कंट्री से। देन दोज पीपल आर पुटिंग अप दिस वीडियोस, कमिंग बैक एंड क्वेश्चनिंग आवर पॉलिसी मेकर्स। हम इतना टैक्स दे रहे हैं, सी टैक्स सिर्फ इनकम टैक्स नहीं होता, हम कुछ भी खरीद रहे हैं हम टैक्स दे रहे हैं, राइट? कहाँ जा रहा है हमारा पैसा, क्यों नहीं हो रहा है? तो
यस
मुझे लगता है
यस
धीरे
सर।
धीरे होगा।
यहीं पे ये बात आती है कि जैसे हमारे पास स्कॉलर्स हैं, हमारे पास पॉलिसीज हैं, पर जो
हाँ
लीडर्स हैं जिनको एक्शन लेना है, जिनको रूल बनाना है, उनको हम कैसे अप्रोच करें, या उनको कैसे प्रेस करें, या दबाएं कि आप इसे इम्प्लीमेंट करें। क्योंकि इंडियंस में हम एक चीज देखते हैं
हम्म
कि वो जब तक कुछ सर पे आके रख न जाए, जब तक वो पानी सर के ऊपर न चला जाए, तब तक उनका स्टेप नहीं बढ़ता है, कोई आगे नहीं कदम उठाते हैं।
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल। मैं
हम उसे
इसमें और एक बहुत
अपने नॉलेज को इम्प्लीमेंट कैसे करें अपने पॉलिसीज को।
हाँ नहीं, एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट चीज मैं इसमें टच करना चाहूंगा। वो है कि हमारे सिटीज में ना ज्यादा वो नहीं है, क्या बोलते हैं, डिसेंट्रलाइजेशन भी कम है। अभी आप कौन सी सिटीज है रुद्रा?
सर, वाराणसी।
वाराणसी में एक्चुअली परसों वाराणसी था, मैं आईआईटी बीएचयू में एक टॉक देने गया था। तो वाराणसी मुझे पता है कितना केओटिक है और क्या चैलेंजेस है। वाराणसी के आईएएस ऑफिसर, म्युनिसिपल कमिश्नर को आप पहचानते होंगे, बट आपको मेयर का नाम नहीं पता होगा। एज ए सिटी
नो
पब्लिक
सर।
का रिस्पॉन्सिबल कौन है? मेयर है। हम मेयर को चुनते हैं ना। आईएएस तो, आईएएस के पास क्या इंसेंटिव है सिटी को ठीक करने के लिए? आईएएस पीपल आर द मोस्ट स्मार्ट पीपल, आई एम नॉट डिनाइंग।
सर,
बट
वो
वो
लोग
क्या
तो
है कि
सिर्फ रूल फॉलो करते हैं। उनको
हाँ,
तो
दो
सिर्फ
तीन साल बाद
इम्प्लीमेंट
वो
करना है।
ट्रांसफर हो जाएंगे। वो बीएयू
उनको सिर्फ
फॉलो करते
इम्प्लीमेंट
हैं।
करना है।
तो जब तक हमारी सिटीज के पास इंडिपेंडेंस नहीं होगा, खुद का पैसा कैसे खर्च करना है, अगर हम मेयर को वो पावर देंगे, तो लोग क्वेश्चन कर सकते हैं लोकल काउंसिलर को, लोकल मेयर को, कि आपने ये खर्चा क्यों नहीं किया। नहीं, बहुत आसान है ये बोलना कि हमारे लोग नहीं केयर करते, बट मुझे लगता है कि हमारे इंस्टीट्यूशनल स्ट्रक्चर में भी प्रॉब्लम्स है। तो ये मल्टी फेसेटेड, हम हर जगह से अटैक हो रहा है हम पे। तो धीरे धीरे करके ना इसको सॉल्व करना होगा। इसमें पब्लिक परसेप्शन अवेयरनेस बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, बट हमें हमारी इंस्टीट्यूशनल, तो ये तो हमारे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में ये बोला गया है 74th अमेंडमेंट के बाद कि ये डिसेंट्रलाइजेशन होनी चाहिए। बट वो सिर्फ है ना, इन राइटिंग है, वो होता नहीं है हमारे सिटी में। तो हम वहां तक कैसे पहुंचे कि आप वाराणसी में रहते हुए आपके मेयर को पूछिए, अगर उन्होंने काम नहीं किया तो 5 साल बाद या 3 साल बाद जब भी इलेक्शन हो आप उनको हटा दें। आईएएस ऑफिसर को तो आप नहीं हटा सकते, आपके पास वो पावर नहीं है, बट सारे डिसीजन मोस्टली आईएएस ऑफिसर्स कर, even though they are the smartest people, but the entire framework is such that they cannot do much. Just okay. Yeah. So maybe I can take one quick question because I have a bus now. 5:35, I have to leave.
No problem. No
I don't
Uh,
problem.
have a question. Just wanted to thank you, Mr. Varun. It was a great presentation. I just
Thank
had
you,
one
Lokesh.
point where I felt that maybe I don't know if you spoke about it or I missed it. But the health and hygiene and the safety part sometimes we lack in public transports. For example, sometimes I ask my friends or my family to take a metro towards the station or something. They're like, no, you're not going there.
Yeah.
But at times, like when I was in the college, I have myself witnessed the safety concerns in terms of transport when there is a bus facility and all those things. So I
Hmm.
think it
Hmm.
comes
Hmm.
to basic safety is like, oh, are they actually safe or not? Plus, the bus
Yeah.
actually stopping at the station or not. So
Yeah.
even even the issue is also there. If people are not able to walk properly or disabled, they do not
Yeah.
still have basic ways of actually putting the person in the bus or something. So I think we are really lacking at the basic foundations of certain things, and definitely the point of GPS that you mentioned. I luckily last year I was in Kolkata and I did use the metro, not the metro, but I did use the local transport system, as in the bus. Somehow I was able to manage to the Google Maps of which bus is coming when, and luckily it was bit okay. It's like, okay, this
Hmm.
is something that bus can be found and all that. So this is what I just felt during the presentation. I did like the video that was in the first that where it showed the comparison between trains, trams, pedestrians, and bicycles.
Hmm.
I mean, it opened a lot of things within me, and yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
thank you so much for
I
sharing.
yeah. No, thank you, Logan. I totally agree. Safety has been a big challenge, not just in public transportation, but our urban spaces. And
Yeah,
that again is connected to how we design our spaces. So there is this concept of eyes on the street, right? Eyes on the street
yeah,
primarily means why, for example, why is Mumbai relatively more like the perception of safety is higher for women as compared to say a Delhi? Is because Mumbai is more mixed use where women walking on the
yeah,
street always have someone observing them. So this could also be done with CCTV, but with more people on the street, it might be slightly more safe. And
yeah,
despite that, I think women go through a lot, and this is a major challenge that we have to work on. And then hygiene also, it's a big consideration. So all of this comes under say we build our infrastructure in a way that we reduce all these additional costs. So this can be translated into a kind of cost which demotivates people from using it. So yes, all of this contributes to that. I totally agree. Thank you.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
Rudra, jaldi पूछो. I have to rush
सर
because
मेरे
I
को
have a
सिर्फ एक
bus. Yeah.
सजेशन चाहिए था कि आज
हाँ
जो अभी हमारा सेमिनार हुआ है इसमें जो भी
हाँ
बात होगी क्या मैं अपने एक प्रोजेक्ट के लिए यूज कर सकता हूँ। मेरा विकसित
बिल्कुल
भारत
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल
2047 के लिए
हाँ
था डिजाइन डिजाइन फॉर
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल
सस्टेनेबिलिटी।
I'll just share my slides with Sauraveswar. Anyway, I think this video would be up online. तो आप मेरे slides को use कीजिए, आप मुझे contact कीजिए. Please, I encourage you to do that.
ओके सर थैंक यू सर थैंक यू
Thank
सो
you
मच।
so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Varun. Thank you so much, participants.
Thank you,
We
Sauraveswar.
will,
Thank
of
you so much.
course, kind of pause here because we would love to continue with a lot of perspectives that Dr. Varun has shared. We would also
Yeah.
let you go, Dr. Varun, because you have the bus coming up. But
Yes. So
one of
sorry.
the
Yeah.
very no problem. One of the very lingering aspect of your presentation was definitely the renewed focus on our public transportation system. We should restore faith, and restoring faith, as you rightly mentioned, is a collective responsibility of people from all backgrounds and all dimension. It cannot be just the
Very nicely
transport
summarized,
planners.
Sauraveswar. Yeah. Very nice. Yeah. I
It
totally
has to
agree.
be
Yeah.
like a collective responsibility. I think we take a lot of collective responsibility for many situations. Uh, Transportation, mobility should also be part of our collective responsibility, and a sense of ownership must be garnered, through our activities, through our education system, and so on and so forth. Thanks a lot once more for your valuable
Thank you so
time,
much.
and
Thank
we
you so
look
much. Thank you.
forward to gain more perspectives from your seminal work. And of course, we would encourage students, participants to go through the entire podcast as well as consider opportunities, as Dr. Varun mentioned, with a Master of Public Policy or a PhD around transportation to be a way forward to sustain our better society. Thanks a lot, Dr. Varun. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Take
so
care.
much.
Bye
Thank you
bye.
so much, Sauraveswar. Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.